So just to give you a little when and where, we got Tennessee-Houston Players Era Tournament. This is going to be a Tuesday game on November 25th. This is at the MGM Grand in Vegas. To get your Bart Torvik projections. Now, obviously, late November, so there's going to be a few games before this that might influence what these projections will be. But preseason projections: Houston 64, Tennessee 61. That's an implied odds of Houston -2.5, Houston -3, over under 125. Reason I bring that up, Blake, if you remember, this is going to actually be the second Tennessee-Houston matchup of 2025, as they just matched up in the Elite Eight. Those odds closed at the exact same line. Those odds closed Houston -2.5, over under 126. We all know how that one ended, with Houston running away with that. Tennessee never had a lead. However, Blake, this is where we match up. Players Era Tournament, Vegas. Come on.
Come on. What more could you ask for here between these two coaches, these two stellar teams here? Because as we said, I mean, these are, if I'm going to pull up the FanDuel odds right now in terms of our national championship to see what kind of movement we've had on this. By the way, did you know there has been a little bit of movement in terms of UConn has jumped up ahead of Florida and Kentucky in the national championship odds. But Houston, still second best odds to win the national championship, plus 1,000 over at FanDuel. Tennessee plus 4,000 over there right now. And like you said, I think it's one where Tennessee fans would like to forget. The one that happened earlier this year, the 69-50 game, just could not, as most teams couldn't against Houston, for them having all that success, could not get anything going in terms of the offensive side of the game. And, I think, too, the date on this is interesting, right? And remind me again, I know you mentioned it, but what's the date? It's November
25th. It's 25th. The second day of the Players Era Tournament. So both teams get one Players Era game, and then this is the second one.
Okay. So I think, that's where, to me, like, we'll have a pretty clear, I think, example of what Tennessee's going to look like offensively. Because I think that's one of our questions with them, right? Is we know Ja'Kobi Gillespie's going to have the ball in his hands a lot. We know Nate Ament can be a stud. Like, as I was telling Justin Gainey, it's like, hey, we know the names that he's being compared to, right? The Kevin Durant comparisons, all this other stuff. Like, we get it. And so there are high expectations for this guy. But I think it's the Amari Abram edition, right? I think it's just kind of seeing elsewhere in the backcourt, like, what does this look like from an offensive standpoint? Because, I mean, let's not kid ourselves, right? I mean, Sam will tell you in the comments. Tennessee fans will tell you in the comments. Like, if there's anything that's been frustrating, it's just simply been, how do we figure out some of these offensive lapses that tend to happen? And you're going against a team that, let me just make sure I got the numbers right on this, but best defensive team in the country last year. They've been in the top 21 in defensive efficiency the past eight straight seasons. They've been in the top 13 in 7 of those. They've been in the top 9 the past 5. So they're going to defend. They're going to get after you. And Tennessee has seen that firsthand earlier this year. So I just think that's what it's going to come down to. I'm very intrigued to see what Tennessee looks like offensively by November the 25th, because it's a new look, Max. And I think that's where, too, like, what does the offensive production look like at the front court?
Yeah, and we'll have a decent idea for both, a little bit of a better idea for Houston. They both have decent exhibitions. Tennessee is playing Duke for their exhibition, so that'll be a great one. Houston, Mississippi State. So we'll get a little SEC action for Houston's exhibition as well. Matchups before this game, Tennessee plays all home games. I'll just list them off real quick. Mercer, Northern Kentucky, North Florida, Rice, and Tennessee State. And then their first Players Era Tournament game, their first high major game of the year, will be that Monday right before this game on a Tuesday against Rutgers. So really not a huge test before this besides the Duke exhibition for Tennessee. Houston, on the other hand, they're going to play that Auburn-Birmingham game the week before Sunday, November 16th. So we'll get a big time Houston game against Auburn where we can really see their Players Era game the day before Syracuse. So both teams should be favored by a few baskets in their first Players Era games there, Blake.
Yeah, so if you want just a quick note, like, okay, what could Tennessee do against Houston that could play a factor in this game? Rutgers, Blue Ribbon College Basketball Yearbook has Rutgers picked 17th in the Big Ten out of 18 teams. So that kind of, and again, it's one projection, but that's just worth noting if you're talking about the huge difference there could be between game 1 and game 2. So, yeah, but I think that's it. And I think this is one, too, where it's like, hey, give me the matchup of Nate Ament, the superstar freshman, against a coach like Kelvin Sampson. And how does Kelvin Sampson, game plan for, again, by this point, who knows? Like, we'll know kind of pretty good idea of, is Nate Ament the next Dalton Connect or Chaz Lanier? Like, is he in his own, you know what I mean? So, like, I think that's going to be one of those things, too. Is that one of our biggest storylines we have when we're talking about this game 2 months from now? Or does it just come back to the Houston side? And just like, hey, look at the knowns, right? Uzan's back, Sharp's there, Tugler's there. Like, these guys between them have won how many games? Yeah. And they're going to defend. They're going to get after you. And sure, I mean, they've got some newcomers to add to the mix, but it's not like they're just adding in anybody, right? I mean, they're adding in very, very good players. So, yeah, I mean, this is one where, like I said, there's a reason Houston is projected to be one of the top 3 national title favorites right now. It's banking on Kelvin Sampson to do what he always does. And remember, too, I want to say this. I mentioned the defensive numbers with Houston. Here's what we can't forget. Sometimes we do this with defensive teams. And if there's anybody who knows that any better, it's Tennessee. Although, maybe that consistency's varied a little bit. But Houston, I'm going to read off their offensive numbers, Max, in the last however many years for Houston, efficiency numbers. 12th, 19th, 11th, 10th, 7th, 22nd, 19th. So whatever that is, the past 7 seasons, 8 seasons. They have absolutely been an elite offensive team. Yeah. And so I think sometimes it's just sort of misconstrued because they play slower games where, yes, you could have lower scoring, but this isn't just a team that's going to grind you defensively. They're able to turn that into offense, but they're also able to run some good stuff. And, oh, by the way, it helps the fact that they are relentless when it comes to the offensive glass, and that's another, I think, portion. And I'm looking back here quickly at that game against Tennessee in the tournament. And, I mean, Houston had 14 offensive rebounds in that game. So, again, just kind of another part of the story there.
Yeah, so just real quick, the depth that you don't see on the graphic here for
Jeez, Matt, we do this every single week. We do a non-conference preview every week. All right. Did he subscribe again? I thought he'd already unsubscribed. Anyways, continue.
For Houston, despite losing LJ Cryer and Roberts, which seems like a massive blow, they still return 43% of their minutes and 3 starters. So it's just like, wow, Houston, once again, going to be right up there. Kingston Flemings, point guard transfer, highly recruited. You're going to have Mercy Miller also in the backcourt, and they're high on redshirt freshman Chase McCarty, 6'6", out on the wing, versatile on the perimeter. And then they brought in grad transfer Khalifa Sacco to back up Jojo Tugler, which brings me to my point, Blake. The depth of the front court for Tennessee. I think the story of this game, well, I think the story of almost every Houston game this year is going to be, when does Jojo Tugler pick up his 3rd foul? If you create a list of every game that Houston plays next year and you track when Jojo Tugler picks up his 3rd foul, I guarantee you there's going to be a correlation between their wins and losses with the games that he picks up that 3rd foul too early. And the reason I bring that up is because the strength of Tennessee this year, I think, is going to be their front court depth, throwing at you in waves. Estrella, Carey, Brown, Cade Phillips, Okpara, throwing a Met up there. If they're able to wear down a thinner Houston front court, especially a guy like Jojo Tugler, who I think is going to be the best defensive player in the country next year, that could be the difference in a game like this, Blake. If we're just looking way ahead, projecting matchups, man, what a front court matchup we have here, and it's fitting for today's episode.
I was gonna say it's kind of we didn't even realize we did this, but it actually is perfect because as much as I said, the offensive storylines for Tennessee, I think what could win them the game is their front court.
Yeah.
Because I think I think the depth there we mentioned just having that many guys and again what's Wayne Brown's role look like for this team, and so I think it's all those things you factor in. And Alex brings up a point here. Hey, he says, look, I think Tennessee has a better team. But Kelvin Sampson has been eating Barnes up the past few matchups. He says Sampson 12-8 versus Barnes. And so, I mean, Kelvin Sampson's probably got a winning record against a lot of top coaches. And I think it's just because, again, we said it. I mean, the win total for Houston, 35, 32, 33, 32 the past 4 seasons. Keep going, 28, 23, 33, 27. Like, my goodness. It's just like this is what they do. And, we mentioned it's like, I think the stat we talked about with Barnes of however many straight years it's been, 4 or 5 straight years, Tennessee has been in the top 5 nationally, 5 straight seasons in defensive efficiency. Well, it's just like you're looking on the other side at a team that's been right there with you and, at times has either been right behind you or right in front of you. And so, yeah, I mean, this is the type of game you expect between these two. We know, the tournament game played out how it did, but I think this is where if our Tennessee front court ranking proves true, and they are one of the top 2 or 3 front courts in the SEC, which should put them as one of the top 10 front courts in the country, probably. This is the kind of game where you mentioned Tugler gets in foul trouble, something like that. Tennessee takes advantage, and they're going to have to defend. They're going to have to rebound. And two, I mean, look at we mentioned like Tennessee went, I think, 5 of 29 from 3 in the game against Houston in the tournament. So you're going to have some pressure on your front court guys here too to score. And you're going to need some easy baskets off of offensive rebounds. I think Tennessee had 12 in that game in the NCAA tournament. You're going to need some easy baskets against Houston, and that's where your big guys can get you that. And luckily, I think that entire core that they have in the front court can do that. I think they can all chip in offensive rebounding wise or just getting some easy plays at the rim, getting to the free throw line, those kind of things. It's crucial if you're going to find a way to score on Houston. So,
and Blake, we just spent how many odd minutes breaking down the game, and the one factor that could just blow all this up is it's halftime, and Emanuel Sharp is 5 of 8 from 3.
Right.
And this game is over. The backcourt for Houston, we haven't spent too much time on it, but obviously one of the best there is.
I say it's almost like we feel like it's a given where we
it's
just don't have to say a whole lot. But like,
yeah,
if you're watching this, you've probably watched college basketball, a bit of it, and you probably know like we're pretty high on Houston. I mean, we talked about this team a lot. Max and I both picked them to beat Florida in the national championship game. I hate to revisit that, Max, but we did, and so I think it's just one of those things. So. Very high on obviously Houston and Kelvin Sampson and what he's done with the program. I think the freshmen are very intriguing to see, too. It's like, hey, you're bringing in freshmen. When's the last time they played multiple freshmen? Houston fans can tell us that. I'm sorry, I don't know the answer. We mostly do the SEC, but obviously we look at all the stuff nationally too. I don't have the rosters in front of me. I don't remember the last time they played multiple freshmen in a starting lineup. Potentially. Let's say that. I mean, this is our projections, but
I feel like they always have one. It's like Walker, or they'll have one guy, and then they'll have like 4 guys that have played 7,000 games.
Yeah. So I don't know. Could it look a little bit different defensively? Maybe we'll see. But if there's one guarantee, that these two teams are going to defend, like no one else, and so that should make for a fun matchup here in this.